Hey everyone, I hope you're having a lovely day today. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to commercially price your artwork, which means if a brand or a company comes to you and they're like, hey, we want you to make artwork for t-shirts, advertising, social media, this is the video to help you figure out how to price your work. So there are 5 questions that I love to ask a client or a potential client before I come up with a scope and a proposal and a price point for the work that I'm making. And the first question is, what is your budget? Sometimes clients won't answer this and they'll ask you to come up with a pricing, which is fine. People like to call that budget volleyball, but sometimes clients will be like, hey, we have a budget of $1,000, $10,000, $50,000, depending on the project and what they're asking of you. And that is really helpful. So if you do get a budget, then you can easily go into the next questions and ask them what they're looking for, and then adjust and go above if you need to go above, or stay right at that budget if you're able to with your scope. But if you don't get a budget from someone, then you can still continue to ask these questions and come up with a budget on your own. The second question that I ask, which is also a pretty big question, is this artwork going to be licensed, or is this artwork going to be bought outright? Where that means you are selling them the copyright to the artwork and they can do whatever with it forever. Usually projects land in the licensing category where they're licensing it for a period of time and only for a specific usage. Rarely do clients really want to buy the artwork outright, but it's never impossible. When it comes to coming up with pricing for something like this, licensing tends to be a bit more affordable or accessible than buying the copyright outright. A good example is a client licensing a painting that you wanted to make to use on their social media account for the period of a year, and they want to use it for paid media as well. That's going to float on the lower end than if they want to buy the copyright for the artwork outright. So from artists that I've chatted with and my own personal experiences, licensing could be in like the lower thousands, or if it's a really small startup and you want to help them out, sometimes like in the high hundreds, but usually in the lower thousands. But if someone wants to buy an artwork outright and use it on merch and apparel and social media and use it for everything, that can run up to 6 figures, if not more. So it really, that is a big indicator of how much you could start thinking of when you come to kind of buckets of price point. If it's licensed, it's gonna be a little less. If it's bought outright, it's gonna be a little more. I touched on question 3 a little bit in question 2, but the usage length. So again, if it's bought outright, we've already addressed that. But if it's licensed, how long is it going to be licensed for? Is it an exclusive license, which means no one else can use that artwork in any way, shape, or form during the licensing period? And for how long? And those 3 questions are incredibly important because that kind of, again, will shape how much you want to charge. They want to have it exclusive, they want to have it for a long time, they want to have it on social media and advertising and product and paid. That's going to be a bigger budget. If they only want to use it for a t-shirt, one-off, and it's not exclusive, that's going to be a little bit less. So again, the kind of spectrum of licensing will allow you to charge a little bit more or kind of come back down and be a bit more accessible depending on the usage that they're looking for. The fourth question is rounds of revisions. Now this can vary from artist to artist. I usually like to include 2 rounds of revisions as part of my initial scope and then have a price point for every revision thereafter. That way you're protecting yourself and your time. But if a client wants more revisions baked into the original scope, then I would definitely increase your price to cover your time, to cover the ability of making different versions and experimenting and playing. But rounds of revisions are really important. My benchmark, again, 2 rounds of revisions that I include in my initial proposal. But if they want additional rounds of revisions, I have a price point of about $1,000 per revision per piece that I put into my scope. So that way they know if they do go above the original agreed upon 2 rounds, that it'll be an incremental price point. And the 5th question I ask, which I touched on in the other questions, is the social component. Do they want you to share on social media? Do they want to put paid media behind it, which means it will be advertised from their account and or from your account using paid dollars? Do they want you to post on multiple platforms, or is it just Instagram? Do they want Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, or do they want LinkedIn? Depending on where your following is, that could be another separate component outside of the scope of work. So what I usually like to do is come up with a scope for the artwork itself and then come up with a separate scope for social media. This way, if a brand can afford both, they can pay for both, but if they can't, they could obviously still opt into hiring you for the work itself. And I like doing this because it allows flexibility for you, it also allows flexibility for your potential client, and it creates a clear delineation of you as an artist and then you as someone that has a following on social media, regardless of how big or how small that following is. And I really like to separate those two. And sometimes the project is we want you to make a reel, making an artwork of our product. And then that's kind of where you could bring those two together because the output is the reel itself, but usually I like to keep those two separate, keeps it easier for everybody. Before I end this video, I also just want to say that pricing is going to vary for different people. Some folks have been in this industry for decades and they're going to demand a higher price. Some folks are newer to this industry and they're going to just try to get what they can to support themselves. And there really is no wrong answer. We all live in different parts of the world. We all have different costs of living, but listening to your instinct, asking other artists what they charge and what they kind of do for their scope are both really helpful things for you. The other thing that I also like to do beyond asking other artists is really sitting with and going through, okay, this project, they want me to do 5 pieces of artwork, they want to own them outright, and they get to use them in perpetuity. What do I feel okay with giving my artwork in exchange for? And that kind of helps me formulate what I'm going to do for my scope and for my pricing. Also, if you have a specific project that you're like, I still have no idea after watching this video what to charge, always feel free to reach out to me. My Instagram is amber_Vittoria. I'm pretty good at checking DMs, even from folks I don't follow, so feel free to DM me and ask me, hey, this is the project, this is what they're asking for, what do you think is a good fit? And I'm always willing to help. So hopefully this is a good start to kind of get your mind wrapped around how to come up with a scope and what to charge for your work commercially. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know. See you in the next video.